What if I told you America's front doors are closing, not with protests, not with war, but with the chilling silence of empty airports? Passenger traffic has collapsed by as much as 70 to 80%. Airlines are abandoning U.S. cities, and foreign travelers are vanishing. Portland, once a proud gateway to the Pacific Northwest, has lost 73% of its international traffic. New York, the so-called capital of the world, is down 68%. Even Washington, D.C., the nation's own capital, has seen traffic plummet by 65%. Meanwhile, Asia and Europe are building brand new airports, pulling away America's influence, prestige, and billions in revenue. So here's the uncomfortable question. Has the U.S. already lost its role as the world's central hub, and is anyone willing to admit it? The United States has slammed down a 25% tariff on foreign aluminum, copper, lumber, and steel, touted as a strategy to make America rich again and make America great again. The promise was that prosperity would come fast. But the reality is playing out in another arena altogether: the skies. If you're planning to fly to the U.S. this summer, you'll notice something different. Fewer options, fewer flights, and emptier cabins. The numbers don't lie. Demand for air travel between Canada and the U.S. has collapsed, forcing airlines to slash routes and cut seats. Passengers now describe surreal experiences. There was nobody there, nobody in my row. It was really shocking. I've never been on a flight like this, one traveler admitted. This isn't just a blip. The front doors to America are closing. Not quietly, but with the deafening silence of empty terminals. Once proud gateways of U.S. culture and power, international airports across the nation are turning into ghost towns. Passenger traffic has fallen off a cliff, down 70 to 80%, leaving concourses that once symbolized global connection reduced to echoing halls of abandonment. Meanwhile, the rest of the world isn't standing still. Across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, 11 brand-new international hubs are rising, pulling not just flights, but also prestige, revenue, and influence away from the U.S. For a country whose economic lifeblood has always been openness, the cost is staggering. Washington now faces the prospect of losing $12.5 billion in 2025 alone as international visitors vanish. And the forecasts only get darker. Arrivals are projected to fall by another 9.4%, stripping nearly $9 billion in consumer spending from local businesses and regional economies. So the question isn't just about tourism anymore. It's about America's standing in the global order. If international travelers no longer see the U.S. as their destination of choice, what does that say about the nation's role in the 21st century? Nowhere is this collapse more visible than in Portland. Once praised as a green, welcoming gateway to the Pacific Northwest, the city's airport has become a painful symbol of abandonment. International traffic there has plunged by 73%, forcing multiple gates to close, some permanently, others indefinitely. The airlines that once carried Portland's name across the globe, Lufthansa, British Airways, Scandinavian Airlines, have pulled out, shifting entire operations north to Vancouver. That move has left Portland cut off from the global map. Even the desire to travel through Portland has collapsed. Requests for flight information have dropped by 81%, driven by concerns about safety, delays, and a growing perception that Portland simply isn't reliable anymore as an entry point into America. And the damage isn't limited to passengers. Cargo operations, once a lifeline for Oregon's exports, have quietly followed the exodus. Airlines are rerouting freight through Seattle and Vancouver, cities now seen as safer and better connected. What was once a regional point of pride has now been downgraded into a no-go zone for airlines and travelers alike. If Portland shows how quickly a regional hub can collapse, the Northeast reveals that even America's most vital arteries are not immune. New York, the city that once embodied global connection, has seen international traffic nosedive by 68%. Emirates has cut service. Virgin Atlantic and Swiss have rerouted their flights elsewhere. Passengers are left with fewer choices, fewer connections, and long, grinding delays. Security bottlenecks now stretch past 2 hours, turning what was once a proud gateway into a nightmare. Boston has fared only slightly better, but the numbers are still brutal. International arrivals are down 59%, and the pain extends far beyond the airport itself. Boston's academic lifeline, foreign students, has thinned dramatically as visa delays discourage families from sending their children to Massachusetts. Airlines that once filled Boston's skies, Ireland's Aer Lingus, Air France, Virgin Atlantic, have cut back their schedules. The ripple effect is immediate and devastating. Hotels in Cambridge and Back Bay now run at barely half capacity, a crushing blow for a city whose economy leans heavily on education and international tourism. From the Northeast to the southern edge of the country, the story only grows darker. Miami, once the beating heart of U.S. connections to Latin America and Europe, has seen its lifeblood drained away. International traffic from Latin America has collapsed by 64%, with multiple carriers cutting routes entirely. For travelers from Brazil, Argentina, or Colombia, the wait time for a U.S. visa now stretches beyond 6 months, an eternity in the travel industry. Frustrated and unwilling to wait, many choose Europe instead, redirecting both leisure and business traffic away from American soil. The ripple effect in Miami is brutal. Hotels along Miami Beach sit half-empty. Restaurants see fewer foreign customers. Even cruise operators, long dependent on Miami's role as a hub, warn of lasting declines. The city that once branded itself as the gateway to the Americas now watches as travelers and dollars alike sail elsewhere. Meanwhile, in Phoenix, a city that worked hard to market itself as an emerging global hub for both tourism and business, the fall has been just as severe. International arrivals have dropped by 62%, with Lufthansa and British Airways slashing service to the desert state. What might seem like a local inconvenience quickly becomes systemic. Arizona's famed tourism triangle, stretching into Utah and Nevada, relied heavily on global visitors flying through Phoenix. Now, tours, hotels, and attractions struggle to fill seats and rooms. Without those flights, the desert economy feels more isolated than ever. It's a stark reminder that when the planes leave, prosperity leaves with them. If Miami and Phoenix reveal the collapse of tourism, Dallas and Seattle expose how deeply the damage cuts into America's economic core. Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, a hub not just for travelers, but also for global energy executives and manufacturing shipments, has seen international arrivals fall by 57%. Major carriers from Asia and the Middle East have pulled back, leaving fewer direct links to critical partners. The shock has extended beyond passengers. FedEx and UPS, which once relied on DFW for international transits, are now shifting their operations to more efficient gateways abroad. For Texas, a state that built its reputation and economy on global connectivity, The loss of international reach is more than symbolic. It strikes at the very foundation of its energy trade and logistics industry. Further north, Seattle tells a parallel story. Long celebrated as America's window to the Pacific, Seattle's ties to Asia have been severed with alarming speed. Passenger traffic from Asia is down 69%, while arrivals from Europe have fallen 54%. All Nippon Airways has eliminated its Tokyo route, while British Airways has sharply reduced service. The consequences ripple far beyond the airport itself. Downtown hotels are now operating at just 45% occupancy, while restaurants and tech conferences that once overflowed with overseas visitors are struggling to survive. For a city that branded itself as a global hub of innovation and commerce, the silence at its airport is nothing short of devastating. If Dallas and Seattle expose the economic fallout, Washington Dulles International Airport reveals something more profound: the erosion of America's diplomatic reach. Even the capital of the United States, the city that once welcomed presidents, prime ministers, and foreign dignitaries with ease, is now caught in the same downward spiral. International traffic at Dulles has plunged by 65% since 2023, with the sharpest declines coming from Europe, America's closest allies. The airline pullback underscores the shift. Virgin Atlantic and Air France have reduced frequencies, while Lufthansa has shifted its focus to hubs in Frankfurt and Munich, leaving Washington with diminished prestige as a transatlantic anchor. For visiting delegations, this means fewer options, longer layovers, and the unmistakable signal that Washington is no longer the smooth gateway to power it once was. The consequences are immediate and humiliating. Hotels that once thrived on embassy events and global summits now face record vacancy rates. Restaurants and service firms that depended on diplomatic traffic are struggling to survive. But beyond the financial losses, the symbolism cuts deeper. Each empty concourse at Dulles quietly suggests that access to America's capital, once effortless, is now uncertain. With that uncertainty, the aura of U.S. leadership begins to fade. If Washington's struggles mark a diplomatic setback, the crisis at Los Angeles and New York tells a far more haunting story: the unraveling of America's global image itself. For decades, Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, and New York's JFK were more than just transportation hubs. They were icons of aspiration. LAX was the stage where dreamers landed, chasing the lights of Hollywood. JFK was the ultimate symbol of openness, where the first steps onto American soil came with the promise of Wall Street, Broadway, and the American dream itself. Together, they projected the image of a nation at the center of global culture, commerce, and ambition. Today, those same gateways stand eerily hollow, their silence louder than any protest. At LAX, international traffic has plunged by 71%. Terminals that once overflowed with directors, musicians, executives, and global travelers now operate at a fraction of their capacity. Singapore Airlines has cut nearly 40% of its flights, while Cathay Pacific has heavily trimmed its schedule, severing vital bridges to Asia's entertainment and financial centers. Beyond the numbers, the symbolism is undeniable. Los Angeles, the city that once exported culture to every corner of the world, now finds itself less accessible to the very audiences it seeks to reach. Even film festivals and global media expos report difficulty attracting international participants, citing the hassle and uncertainty of traveling through LAX. JFK tells an even grimmer tale. International arrivals there have collapsed by a staggering 78%, the sharpest decline in American aviation history. Emirates has slashed 60% of its services. British Airways has cut much of its London frequency, leaving entire wings of the airport abandoned. For decades, JFK was the airport that never slept, with flights landing from every continent nearly every hour. Now, its once bustling international concourses feel like vast, empty monuments to a bygone era of U.S. dominance. The absence isn't just visible, it's psychological. For travelers around the world, the first step onto American soil no longer begins in New York. That shift chips away at the mythology that long fueled America's soft power. While U.S. airports sink into silence, Canada and other global hubs are seizing the space Washington once dominated. Canadian travelers, once a steady stream into American cities, are avoiding the U.S. altogether. Bookings have dropped by more than 70% as families opt for South America or Europe instead. Florida's beaches and Phoenix's resorts, long favorites of Canadians, are being swapped for the Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Jamaica. And the decline doesn't stop in the skies. 500,000 cross-border car trips vanished in a single month, marking the lowest level since 2022. For border towns and tourist states, this isn't just a seasonal dip. It's a warning siren. The front doors to America, once powerful symbols of openness and strength, now stand as ghost towns. The final question is unavoidable. Can the United States still claim to be the world's central hub? Or has that role already passed, perhaps permanently, to others? This crisis isn't only about empty terminals. It's about a nation losing its position at the crossroads of the world. If Canada, Europe, and Asia are quietly replacing the U.S. as the preferred destinations for global travel and commerce, then the implications stretch far beyond aviation. The question becomes, what comes next? Can America rebuild its gateways to the world, or are we witnessing the first stages of a permanent shift in global power? One thing is clear. The silence echoing through America's airports speaks louder than words.